Hello and welcome back to Shock's Talks. I'm Shakti and this is a channel about anomalous phenomena. So I took a little 3-month break. I didn't know if I was going to try to do something different when I came back, but now I'm just picking up where I left off. So thanks to everyone that's been here, and if you're new, I really hope you like this channel. I'm going to be talking about the drone stuff that's been going on, the New Jersey drones, or what some are calling the great drone flap of 2024. It's now 2025, so it kind of spanned the very end of last year into the beginning of this new year. And in general on this channel, I am studying especially the UFO phenomena. So the history, the abduction research, we're looking at things that are happening today and always looking back to the past for more context and understanding around this really mysterious topic. And in addition to that, if you're into witchy things, if you're into psychic things, if you're into other paranormal research and just having conversations about the nature of reality and spirituality, I love to cover all of that as well. So please check out all my playlists and let's get into the drone stuff. So basically, when this all first started happening, which was about mid-November of 2024, I knew it was going on, but I almost didn't care. I was in this weird mood where I just felt like this all just looks man-made and it looks like a lot of fake stuff and it looks like a lot of like, who cares? What, this has nothing to do with UAP. But the longer it went on, the more mysterious it got, and the sightings and the things that were being reported were not just happening in New Jersey, all across the United States, but also there were some sightings around the world around this same time. So whatever was going on, it was one of those big mysteries where lots of people were seeing lots of different kinds of things in the sky. And that's always something we need to sort of take note of. We may not know what's going on right this minute, and that's okay because maybe it doesn't affect us right this minute. And like so many of these things, they kind of come and go, and they don't always end up being the type of situation where we can really nail down whatever it was. But let's look at it. Let's look at some of the information that's been coming through. And as always, I have links in the description box below so you can go and check out some of the experts' videos on this topic. Now, I only really paid attention to what Richard Dolan was saying and a little bit to Luis Elizondo, who was being interviewed by Ross Coulthart. I started watching a video with Stephen Greer, and honestly, I just couldn't get through it because something about, I don't know if it's just a chemistry thing with me and that man's energy, but I don't want to hear him talk. Something in my system says, no, 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 not for me. Not for me. I don't know what it is. So I didn't really dig into what he thought. And, he's someone that a lot of people follow, but he talks a lot of talk. And I don't think that everything he says is false. I just feel that there is so much ego in the mix that it just is a turnoff to me and it's hard for me to listen. So there were also some interesting interviews, like Alexis Brooke was interviewing someone and talking about this topic. And of course, social media has been blowing up with it, and the mainstream news outlets were also covering it. And then the holidays happened and the new year happened, and probably mostly everyone has forgotten about it. But what really happened, and what are we talking about here? So mid-November 2024 to January 2025, and possibly ongoing now, 2-ish months, there were these mysterious sightings in the sky. And the locations, well, it started in Morris County in northern New Jersey, but they've spread around the world. So here are some examples of reports that were pulled off of the New Fork site, and that is National UFO Reporting Center. And I'm just going to read you out the places and the date, and I put them in chronological order so that we could sort of see the flow of where these things were going. So Hanahan, South Carolina, December 10th. Haltom City, Texas, December 11th. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, December 13th, 14th, and 19th. San Diego, California, December 14th. Amherst, Massachusetts, December 14th. Willard, Utah, December 15th, Pensacola Beach, Florida, December 15th, and Richmond, Virginia, December 16th. So over the course of about 5 or 6 days, those things were happening in the US. There were also reports on Newfork from Argentina, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Germany, Hungary, Lithuania, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. So pretty interesting that so many sightings were coming in. Now, what were people seeing? So people were seeing a combination of different things. There were things that appeared to be similar to drones, and that's why they started calling them drones. And maybe they are a new type of drone that we just don't know about yet. And then they have been reporting saucers, the classic saucer. There have been some other configurations of lights and what some people call orbs. Now, an orb, I don't know what it really is. Nobody knows what it really is, but what it appears to be is kind of just this luminous, almost like a plasma ball, according to a lot of reports. So it seems to just be this luminous ball of light. Sometimes it's in different colors. Sometimes it's the size of a basketball, sometimes bigger. It's really hard for people to gauge the size of these things when they're at a distance, but some orb situations have come really close, like inside of people's houses and things like that. So that's generally what they're talking about when they say orbs. And I have a couple episodes on orbs and also on other mass sightings. So I put those in the links below if you want to go back and learn about when were some other times when a bunch of people saw strange things in the sky, what was going on with those moments in time. So basically, when we're talking about regular drones in this reality, we have right now, as far as we know, that there's basically two types of drones. And there's a commercial consumer drone and there's a military defense drone. So when it comes to these commercial drones, they are recreational, commercial, and industrial, often used for aerial shots, cinematography, or things like those drone shows where they kind of put on a light show in the sky with drones. Companies like Amazon are testing drone delivery, and sometimes they're used for agriculture, for security, for land mapping, and environmental monitoring. So they have many different uses. They're typically lightweight, GPS enabled, and they are equipped with cameras and sensors. And then the military defense drones, they are typically used for reconnaissance, for surveillance, and combat operations. These could be used to gather intelligence without risking personnel. They could be used, they could be armed drones used in combat. There are also some that transport supplies into conflict zones, and those are high endurance with stealth capabilities, advanced sensor systems, and sometimes weaponized. Now, the first drone we talked about is the one that you've probably seen that looks like it has 4 little limbs poking out in every direction, so like a kind of an X shape in a way, and it's like each of those has a little helicopter thing spinning on top of it. They're loud, and they cannot really stay in the sky as long as some of these reports, and we'll get into those details in a second here. The military drones, they look a little more like a small airplane, and they can vary in size, and so that's kind of what we're dealing with. The stuff that people were seeing in the sky looked a little different from any of these, and the average drones can fly for about 20 to 45 minutes, and the high-end models can achieve maybe 90 minutes, according to like a quick Google search and a little bit of research I did and asking ChatGPT as well. But the thing about the sightings that people are reporting is that some of these things have stayed in the sky for like, I think around 5 hours at a time. So that is very different from what we're used to, and that's why it's causing a big stir. So when I looked at Richard Dolan's video, he had some really interesting takes on this. He mentioned that the agencies like the FBI and the Department of Defense have looked over 5,000 reports. And they're claiming they are commercial, hobbyist, and police drones, misidentified aircraft, and stars. So this is very similar to like the Project Blue Book stuff. Somebody has to say something about it, and it's easier for them to say, oh, it could have been any of these things, but we're all pretty well aware that it's not anything normal, or else so many people wouldn't be talking about it. And also, there are details in the reports of how these things are behaving that just make them seem not necessarily anomalous, but they fall in the category of unidentified. So let's see. He mentions that some of these things really do look like flying saucers in some of the videos, but at this point in time, it's really hard to tell what's real or not. We have been getting more and more emails and notifications about AI and getting prompted to use AI more and more, and we're on the cusp of what Dolan called, I believe he called it a post-truth reality. Let me find this part in my notes. What did he say? He did, maybe I didn't write that. Oh, yeah, he said, we may be entering a post-truth world. AI generation programs. Who has the time to fact check everything? We don't know what we're seeing, and it makes it difficult to get the specifics of each case. So this is why I think it is really important for us, those of us who are interested in this topic, to continue to go back in time and look at the literature. And that's why I'm reading all these books, because I want to know what people have researched and written about this topic before this moment in time, because right now we're kind of leaning into the internet as the oracle, and I don't know, I just don't want us to lose this old information. I feel like these interviews, I mean, at the same time, the internet has given us access to so much more. I was able to watch John Mack speaking on a little talk that the New Paradigm Institute posted on their website, and it was really cool to just see him in action and actually hear his personality coming through. I'm reading one of his books right now, so it was just really neat to see him talk, and I linked that below as well. But back into what Dolan was saying about the drones. So he says the videos look interesting, but not that unusual. And this is a key thing that I highlighted here in my notes. What we are not getting is what any real UFO researcher would want to look for. This is Dolan. What you really need to do is get the specific details of each individual sighting. Where, what time did it start, observed behavior, how did they depart the scene, any unusual behavior, things like this. And weirdly, that's missing from almost all of these sightings. Now, that is very weird. There were 11 strange sightings over Picatinny Arsenal, and this is an American military research and manufacturing facility, which is located on land in Jefferson and Rockaway townships in Morris County. So that's where it all started, the Morris County, New Jersey drone sightings. And some of the reports do say that these things were hanging out for 5 hours or more. So that's where we compare to that 20 to 90 minute range that's typical of known technology. So this is something beyond that, beyond those typical capabilities. And sometimes they were reported as being silent. So that's also very strange for drones. And then there was one theory that came from this man, John Ferguson, and Dolan mentioned this, and I had also heard this on another podcast. I think it was actually, it might have been Lou Elizondo talking to Joe Rogan about this topic, but I don't remember. I listen to a lot of different things whenever I'm researching, covering one thing. I like to hear different opinions. So the theory that was floating around was that this man, John Ferguson, who works for Saxon Aerospace, he is a drone manufacturer. And he started saying that what he thinks is that they might have been searching for a missing nuclear warhead. So he said that they are equipped with thermal sensors and devices that can detect radiation, which is why they would stay lower to the ground to be able to detect signatures of radiation. And um, that was his theory, and a couple people were kind of considering that as plausible, but who's to say? Then Dolan goes on to say that these types of situations are often taking the shape of a crisis turned into a power grab. So you see things like state authorities and politicians looking to extend their reach into the skies, people looking to change law and policies and basically beef up their abilities to take down drones, etc. So it's a moment where people can say, ooh, like things are unsafe, let us create a new policy, let us get more control. You know, these institutions often are seeking more power and control. And so he talks about that in depth. And he also mentions this quote I took down: the skies are one of the new frontiers of government expansion. And then he also goes on to say that it's very likely we can rule out foreign adversaries, he said, and he's a historian, not just of UFO history, but everything. So he has a really good finger on the pulse, and he's really well aware of the relationships between countries in a way that I'm not, but it's interesting to hear him talk about it. And he did say that this is probably not Russia or China, and he would be shocked if it was any foreign adversary. So, was this meant to be a secret that was discovered, or was it intended for us to see? Is a question that he asks and explores. And the term psyop, psychological operation, comes up, and he kind of runs down a list of his different thoughts about all these possibilities. But in the end, he basically says if it's an op of any kind, it's showing the embarrassing nature of the United military to protect itself from drones. So he's saying we just look really bad. This whole thing has just shown that, like, we are unable to respond to a situation like this, and that's not great. And then if it fades away with no explanation and no resolution, then it would make me think we are dealing with some kind of devious public manipulation. This, again, is Richard Dolan's thought on the matter. And he says we do need an honest answer from the US government. So there was the interview on News Nation with Lou Elizondo, the Pentagon whistleblower, talking to Ross Coulthart. And he mentioned that these things are being reported without the normal techno signatures, like sounds, for example. So unlike typical drones, they are being reported in ways that do make them seem a little different, like we mentioned before. And he brings up the 5 observables. So let's go through that. The 5 observables are things that you can look for to determine whether something is UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena. And here they are: anti-gravity, instant acceleration, hypersonic speed without signatures, low observability, and trans-medium travel. So I linked the website to the 5 observables below if you want to go deeper on what each of these definitions really means. But you can kind of tell by the name what we're talking about. So anti-gravitic properties is something you hear people say sometimes. Instant acceleration is like, if you see a little satellite going across the sky, it's kind of just arcing evenly. If you see a UFO, it might be like boom, 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 or it just disappears really quickly, or it makes a really weird turn that doesn't make sense for airplanes or other things that we know about. Hypersonic speed without signatures is really talking about no sound, the big sonic booms that should happen. And low observability has to do with cloaking. So that's interesting. And the transmedium travel, I swear at one point in time there was a website that had a definition for transmedium. It was one of the Arrow or they're always creating these different groups and then they disappear because they're not really doing anything. But anyway, they had defined transmedium, and I remember a definition that talked about different dimensions, but then they changed it, I think, because when I looked again later, it actually was just talking about travel between like water and air or some other medium. So now that's the definition that everyone uses and that's what they're talking about. But in my mind, I'm like, I wonder if I just imagined that or if they really had it up there and then they changed it. Because I swear that's what it said when I read it the first time. But maybe it's because I just think that they are zipping in and out of different dimensions. But I think other people have considered that possibility as well. And then more about what Lou Elizondo was saying on this interview about, the government, either they know and are lying or they don't know and are incompetent. This is basically what Dolan was saying. And he also talks about we might be dealing with two things, a mixture of UAP and drones responding. So, for example, he said, what if they laid out a perimeter in an area? And let's use that New Jersey Picatinny Arsenal as an example. What if there was some kind of perimeter there that could detect UFO or UAP activity? So it was a sensor system that was meant to pick up on the signatures that are associated with these unidentified anomalous phenomena. And as soon as that sensor system is triggered, all of the drones are deployed. And if that were the case, they're going to do their job no matter what, because that's their whole job. And they're going to go and start like checking out or doing whatever they're doing. So he kind of lays out this possibility that it could be a mix of things going on. And that's why when people, civilians, are seeing things in the sky, sometimes they are seeing both. And sometimes at one point in the night, everybody saw the UFO, and then at another point in the night, everybody saw the drones, and then you're getting reports from different sightings happening on the same day, for example. He also said you could use drones to confuse people. So if you didn't want people just seeing and reporting UFOs, but you threw drones into the mix, it could just be for that. It could just be there to distract and confuse people. So he threw out these possibilities, and he also said it's definitely not foreign adversaries. So who knows? We don't know, and it's a strange little moment. Another big wave, and I linked the Shocks Talks that has this covered, is the Belgian UFO wave, which happened from November 1989 to April 1990. So that was 6 months about. And the first notable sighting was November 29th, 1989. And the peak incident was March 30th through 31st, 1990. Now, this was a wave that included thousands of witnesses. Over 2,600 written reports were submitted to the Belgian Society for the Study of Space Phenomena, SOBEPS. And witnesses were describing large triangular craft with bright lights at each corner and a central red light. There was a lot of reports of these things moving silently and displaying erratic, non-aerodynamic maneuvers. The sightings were concentrated over Belgium, but included surrounding areas. And the Air Force there scrambled F-16 jets after radar detected unidentified objects. Jets locked onto targets, but the objects performed extreme instantaneous maneuvers, evading pursuit. Radar and visual observations documented during this incident. So you're getting people reporting it and radar reports, so that makes it a really credible lump of reports, when you're comparing both of those things, witness sightings, expert sightings, and radar data. That's pretty strong. And then this was also one of the most well-documented UFO waves involving civilians, police, and military personnel. So again, you're getting these reports in from various types of people, which just adds to it feeling really real. Because, for example, if it was just the civilians, people have a tendency to really not that they don't trust regular people, but police and military personnel are often trained to identify things in the sky, so they have a special skill set when it comes to this. So it just strengthens the report, the credibility of the report when it comes from a trained witness. They call them trained witnesses. You'll hear that a lot. So it's still a mystery, and the mystery remains a mystery. But whenever I feel overwhelmed by not knowing the answer to something I want to know in this field of ufology, I just think, okay, well, there's tons of books, and I'm going to go back and read another book and just take my time slowly combing through someone else's research and let it sink into my consciousness and just continue to look at this topic over time. So right now I am jumping back into Abduction, like I said I would 3 months ago, and I'm reading Abduction. This is John Mack's book, and it's 13 different cases, 13 in-depth case histories of alien abductions. Now, in terms of other mass sightings, John Mack is the person who interviewed the children of the Ariel school in Zimbabwe. So I have episodes about that, and you can also just Google that, and you can get a feel for who he is. A very thoughtful researcher. He was also training with Bud Hopkins, another famous abduction researcher who we've talked about. And I'm just at the beginning of this book, but I wanted to read something out of this. So the little talk that I posted down below that was the New Paradigm Institute recently uploaded this video with John Mack. That talk was very interesting to me, and one of the things that I picked up was that, and it was either there or in this book, but from him, is that he actually does consider the possibility that these abduction scenarios are happening in a way between worlds. So I didn't know he felt this way, because when you read the reports of what the witnesses are talking about to these trained counselors of various levels, like whether they are psychologists, psychiatrists, or just people who are researching it, so he's a professor of psychiatry at the Cambridge Hospital, Harvard Medical School, and founding director of the Center for Psychology and Social Change. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and he's not with us anymore. I believe it was 2004. Maybe he passed away. We'll have to double check that. But anyway, he really got me thinking, like, that's the big weird question mark in my mind, because people have these abduction experiences and they feel physical and they seem physical, but they also seem to be so dreamlike, and a lot of times they're being taken from their bed and then put back in their bed. That's weird. But then there's this other thing where, like, there are physical markings sometimes. And so it's just really hard to wrap our minds around what's going on here. But I guess other researchers, including Jacques Vallée, have also considered the possibility that we're dealing with something more interdimensional, and that the idea of the hybridization program that we've talked about before is really a hybridization of humans from this physical matter reality and beings from some other reality frame, and the hybrids are existing on some plane that may be considered an in-between space. So instead of like us thinking like these hybrid babies are on a physical ship that's hovering outside of our atmosphere, it's more like these hybrid children are existing in a realm between our physical matter reality and some other dimensional reality, or some other reality frame if you're looking at it through the lens of Tom Campbell's work. So as I continue to research this topic, I'm always looking into what theories of everything help to tell a story of reality that best allows for all of these strange things to exist within it. And I've found none better than Tom Campbell's theory of everything. But let's hear from John Mack. He says, there are, of course, other phenomena that have led to the challenging of the prevailing materialist, dualistic worldview. These include near-death experiences, meditation practices, the use of psychedelic substances, shamanic journeys, ecstatic dancing, religious rituals, and other practices that open our being to what we call in the West non-ordinary states of consciousness. But none of these, I believe, speaks to us so powerfully in the language that we know best, the language of the physical world, for the abduction phenomenon reaches us, so to speak, where we live. It enters harshly into the physical world, whether or not it is of this world. Its power, therefore, to reach and alter our consciousness is potentially immense. So that's really powerful. And he's talking about how these experiences change people. And I've also been listening to Carolyn. I call her Carolyn Miss, but I've heard people say Mace, but it's Myss. And my parents used to have some of her books when I was growing up. Anatomy of the Spirit was one, and Sacred Contracts. And she's been, I don't know, I heard a New Year's message that she posted, and I was like, oh yeah, I got to listen to more of her work. She really deals in like miracles and religious figures who tapped into this healing ability, allowing grace to flow through them. She's a medical intuitive, so she's dealing with kind of the energetic side of all of this. And I saw that she has some talks about traumatic initiations, and I think that it just sparked something in my mind because it reminded me that, you know, so many of us go through these initiation phases in life, and usually there's a great deal of trauma that comes with that, and through that trauma we are broken open or we are transformed, and we shed aspects of our old self, we shed layers that are confining our true nature, and we start to shine really brightly, and we break out of these cages, and it's disruptive and super painful, and people would liken it to like the butterfly bursting through the chrysalis, but really it's probably the time when you're in the chrysalis just dissolving your own flesh and becoming something new. And so basically the idea that other people who study mythology and talk about how archetypes and myth and story as an overlay for our human experiences can help us to understand what the meaning is behind these moments of initiation. And interestingly enough, the trauma that comes with a lot of UFO experiences seems to have the same type of effect on people as something like an initiation moment in life. Many people who study this phenomena refer to shamanic cultures and speak of how so many indigenous cultures have their own relationship to what we call aliens, and it's actually deep and has been going on forever, and they know these beings in ways that maybe some of us can't even fathom, and that many of them have gone through some type of initiation or like a ceremonial meeting with beings from other realms who then are able to impart knowledge or healing abilities or help steer them in the direction of their life's purpose, things like that. So whether or not you meet an alien and that happens, I guess what I'm trying to say is that these things can happen in so many different ways because it's part of the human experience to be initiated into higher levels of understanding and to tap into a greater sense of your purpose and the just the vastness of what can occur within a given lifetime. And I believe in reincarnation personally. It just makes sense to me, and I've always felt that way. So I think that we do have many lives, but I feel like each one is extremely precious and so important. And in my view, based on all that I've researched and all that I feel intuitively, it's all about making better and better choices. And a choice can be so small and it can be so grand and so impactful, but you're not going to make the right big choice unless you're practicing making all the right little choices. So that brings me to our little witchy tip. We're going to close this episode out with kind of a New Year's ritual that I've been testing out. And you can try it or not, or maybe it'll inspire you to create your own little experiment, because it's fun to experiment in life and gather your own data. But I was thinking about the phrase, energy flows where attention goes, or something along those lines. I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but that's what was popping into my mind. And so I was thinking about how important attention is, and how people talk about presence as kind of a foundational, like understanding presence is foundational to any energy work, and being present in your own energy field or body or extrasensory self, wherever you want to bring your focus is where you're going to be able to tap into the power of that space. And I'm trying to bring my focus into my body right now, because it's the new year. I'm probably caught up in the momentum of wanting to be healthier just like everybody else, and I thought to myself, I'm going to practice blessing blessing my food, and I'm going to bless every single meal, because I've been blessing my dog's water every single time I've filled up his bowl since the day that I got him. And I don't think I've ever missed a water blessing for my dog, but I don't do the same thing for myself. And I was like, what's wrong with me? I should be doing this. And it's just about bringing a positive intention to things that I am bringing into my own body, that I'm asking my body to incorporate into itself and to release what's not good to hang on to. And I count on my body to do that, because I don't have ultimate control over every little thing that I breathe in or drink or eat. And the world is not built for us all to live a picky little perfect diet where everything is homegrown and perfectly organic. So it's not really fair to think that that's the only way that anyone can be healthy. I just hate that idea. So in my mind, it's like, whatever level of reality you happen to be at, and no matter who you are and what you have available to you, you can always use your intention to bless whatever you're about to eat. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Plus, it's an ancient tradition in so many cultures for a reason. So I grew up with a Sanskrit meal prayer that's very long and beautiful, and there's an English translation, and we would often say the Sanskrit and then the English at community meals or at meals that I had at my school. So from about the age of 5 to like 12 or 13, I had a lot of meal blessing going on, which is a beautiful thing. But then later in life, when I just wanted to be normal, I wasn't going to sit at the public school lunch table and be blessing my food in front of everyone. That would have been crazy. It just felt too vulnerable. And, I had to stop doing that practice. But now I realize that a food blessing does not have to be a big show. Nobody has to know what's going on. And it can be as simple as a thought. And you can just think, I bless this food, or I'm grateful for this food, or my body knows what to do with this food. Could be a version of a meal blessing. Or you could just say, thank you, body, for taking this in and making the most of it. So since I started this practice, I've written down about 30 meals. And if it was a glass of water or a cup of tea or a special gummy, or anything I was consuming, I put it on the list, and I just made a little check mark if I remembered to bless it. And if I had forgotten, I put a little X next to it. So I forgot 9 times out of 30. And it was harder at the beginning of this experiment to remember, and then it's getting better as I go on. But unless I continue to really stay committed to it, I could see it easily just falling off. So I'm going to keep practicing it for as long as I can and see if it becomes as natural to me as when I bless my dog's water, which, like I said, I never forget to do. It's easy to love and take care of another. Sometimes it's hard to give ourselves that same treatment, but that's my little New Year's experiment. I would love to hear if you're doing any kind of experiment in the new year. It's still January, it's Capricorn season, it's my season. I'm a Cancer rising and there's a Cancer full moon tomorrow, so I'm feeling really good with the energy, even though life has been crazy and so many people I know are going through really intense struggles, and there's fires raging in California, which is really devastating and scary, and we have someone about to walk into office and be our new president, and that's pretty unsettling for a lot of people. And I guess I just keep getting this message that life is not going to get easier anytime soon. And that has to do with the fact that we're growing older, and we're dealing with big climate crisis issues. We are dealing with capitalism. We're dealing with AI really starting to come forward. Like, it just feels like a chaotic and intense time, and it just feels like life is a little bit relentless for a lot of us. So it's so important to take time to quiet the mind, ground the energy, clean, clear, release, relax. We have so many tools available. We have each other. We have these beautiful online communities of people who care. We have so many resources in the form of books, and we always have the power of our own mind and our own energy. So starting with the self, starting with the body, using the power of intention, I think we can ground and center, and we can adapt and become resilient to the challenges, and we can also level up to new levels of being able to deal with all the stress that the world is kind of throwing at us at any given moment. So you're doing a great job. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I can't wait to keep talking about what I learned from the Abduction book by Mack. So I'll see you next time on Shocks Talks. Happy New Year, and thanks for coming back, and like and subscribe and share these videos if you would be so kind. Thank you.